Good day everyone! I'm Benedict Disena from BTVT and ELT1 and today I will give a brief presentation of the Philippines Constitution, particularly the Malolos Constitution, 1935 Constitution, 1973 Constitution, and 1985 Constitution. So first, what is a constitution? Constitution is the foundation of the system of government of the Philippines. The term constitution refers to the body of rules and principles in accordance of which the powers of sovereignty is regularly exercised. Constitution. It came from a Latin word constitu, which means fix, establish, and settled.
So first, let's talk about the Malolos Congress. Malolos Congress is also known as the National Assembly of Representatives, was the constituent assembly of the First Philippine Republic. It was held between June 23 and September 10. On September 5, 1898, the Revolutionary Congress convened in Barasoen Church in Malolos City, with Pedro Paterno as president and Gregorio S. Araneta as vice president, with Philippine President Emilio Aguinaldo. The Congress wants to show to the foreign correspondents that we Filipinos are civilized. The Congress then decided to draft a constitution, a decision opposed by Apolinario Mabini, the Prime Minister of Revolutionary Government. The resulting Malolos Constitution, ratified on November 29, 1898, signed into law on December 23, approved on January 20, 1899, sanctioned by President Emilio Aguinaldo on January 21, and promulgated on January 22. The document states that the people have exclusive sovereignty. It states basic civil rights, separated the church from the state, and called for the creation of National Assembly which would act as the legislature. It also calls for a parliamentary republic as the form of government, with the president elected for a term of 4 years by a majority of the assembly. 1935 Constitution of the Philippines. The 1935 Constitution provided the legal basis of the Commonwealth government, which was considered a transition government before the granting of the Philippine independence with American-inspired constitution. It was written in 1934, approved and adopted by the Commonwealth of the Philippines 1935 to 1946, and later used by the Third Republic year 1946 to 1972. The 1935 Constitution, ratified on May 14, 1935. Drawn up in the terms of the Tyding-McDuffie Act, which created the Philippine Commonwealth, also served as a basis for an independent Philippine government from 1946 until 1973. The 1935 Constitution features established the Commonwealth government, provided a democratic and republican government, and inclusion of the Bill of Rights. 1973 Constitution of the Philippines. The 1973 Constitution, ratified on January 17, 1973. Its features establishment of unmodified parliamentary government, suspension of the Bill of Rights, and has given greater power to the executive department. The Constitution of the Philippines, or Saligang Batas ng Pilipinas in Filipino, is the supreme law of the Philippines. The 1973 Constitution, composed of a preamble and 17 articles, provides for the shift from presidential to parliamentary system of government. The Constitution vests the legislative power in the National Assembly. A Prime Minister is elected from among the members of the National Assembly and serves as the head of government and Commander-in-Chief of the Philippine Armed Forces. A President is elected from among the members of the National Assembly and serves as the symbolic head of state with a 6-year term. The judicial power is vested in the Supreme Court, composed of Chief Justice and 14 justices. The National Assembly exercises the power to define, prescribe, and apportion to the jurisdiction of the lower courts. All justices of the Supreme Court and judges of the lower courts are appointed by the Prime Minister. 1987 Constitution of the Philippines. The 1987 Constitution, ratified on February 2, 1987. The 1987 Constitution features institution of a democratic government, separation of church and state, sovereignty of the people, renunciation of war as national policy, and supremacy of civilian authority over the military, and lastly, separation of powers. Aquino began her term by repealing many of the Marcos-era regulations that had repressed the people for so long. In March, she issued a unilateral proclamation establishing a provisional and constitution. The constitution gave the president broad powers and great authority, but Aquino promised to use them only to restore democracy under a new constitution. This new constitution was drafted in 133 days by an appointed constitutional commission of 48 members and ratified by the people in a plebiscite held in February 2, 1987. It was largely modeled on the American Constitution, which had so greatly influenced the 1935 Constitution, but it also incorporated Roman, Spanish, and Anglo law. The 1987 Constitution established a representative democracy with power divided among the three separate and independent branches of government: the executive, a bicameral legislature, and the judiciary. There were three independent constitutional commissions as well: the Commission on Audit, the Civil Service Commission, and the Commission on Elections. Integrated into the Constitution was a full Bill of Rights which guaranteed fundamental civil and political rights, and it provided for free, fair, and periodic elections.
The 1935, 1973, and the 1987 Constitution maintained the presidential form. It also got its Congress. The three branches of the government stays, but the judiciary was empowered even on martial law. The separation of church and state is maintained since 1898. A provision in 1987 was fleshed, making the police civilian and national used to be local. Election is direct in these constitutions. There is no by-elections, but majority or plurality of votes gain elects a candidate. The 1987 Constitution has a non-executing provision on banning or prohibiting political dynasties, on banning or... Oh shit, ulit. Oh my god! Election is direct in these constitutions. There is no by-elections, but majority or plurality of votes gain elects a candidate. The 1987 Constitution has a non-executing provision on banning or prohibiting political dynasties, but there is no specific law and its implementing rules to flesh in reality this 1987 mandate. Now, as the term of office, re-election is not allowed for the 6-year term of the president and the vice president, and limits on re-elections for other elected positions. From 1898 to 1935 to 1973 down to 1987, there are many similarities. The basic framework was retained. The 1898 Constitution was thwacked by the Yankees. The 1935 Constitution was under the tutelage of the North Americanos. The 1973 Constitution was a product of Marcos-guided democracy and his martial law. And the 1987 Constitution was the product of Tito Cory's Constitutional Commission, selected by Tito Cory's kitchen cabinet. The only difference between 1973 and the 1987 Constitution is the term of office of elected officials. The 1973 Constitution has no term limit. In 1987 Constitution, the president only one term for 6 years. The senators, congressmen, and the local official has 3 years term.